changes to the agenda?
Yeah, I'd like to add something to the agenda at some point there, sir, Mr. Chairman.
What's your,
I'd like to introduce the discussion of in our enforcement orders and fees, and looking at that schedule at some point
okay,
to put some bite or teeth into our enforcement orders.
okay.
92 Clap Road was on for an RDA, but I think we're going to have them do the certificate of compliance first before we get that closed out, get the trampoline out of there, and then finish off the RDA.
So
So
are
we
gonna-
won't be talking about it tonight.
Okay.
And then, Carol, did you have
Does Petratelli is coming in?
Petroselli Indian Trail
Yeah.
is coming in, and the walking trail group is not going to be on for tonight.
Oh, okay.
And probably not the next meeting because of, going to have a big, hands will be full.
All right, well, maybe we'll chat about it for a minute anyways, and then
Okay.
we'll decide what we want to do. Okay.
I make a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Well, why don't we chat with Chris first, since he's front and center and he can go home? He would jump up here. You want to introduce yourself?
My name's Chris Lucas. Appreciate you taking the time, but just give you a brief.
Hi.
I have mine.
That's a qualifications package.
So, for anybody that doesn't know, Chris is going to review the Goulston Toll Brothers project for the commission, and I think he's got one other one.
Yeah, Two Glades Road, which the butter bought the property and
Oh,
now wants to
okay.
change the location of the house, so.
No,
So,
start fresh on both.
Nice way to start.
Good, good.
so if you want to, Pat's giving you pretty.
They're not gonna be
Chew
bad.
on.
These aren't
Something
gonna
to
be
chew
bad.
on. Yeah.
I think the
Yeah.
conversation went something like, "Who doesn't know anything about this? And who can we suck into this project?"
No, I think, I know a superstar we can bring in, but the Toll Brothers, well, I'll start with Two Glades Road. That one, we had talked about, it went through the court system, and now the new property owner who could build a house and have it not be impacting the wetland, now wants to move it closer to the wetland. We already know he could build it without impacting anything, so they are trying to prove that what they want to build will not impact the wetlands. So we need to have somebody who can review all their reasons why they think it's not going to hurt it, and we can make a decision on it. But it was a 4-page thing from South River Environmental, John Zimmer. So he's working for the property owner, and I sent it out by email, and I was going to give this to Chris tonight, and you know, he can look it over, and we can schedule a time to go out and walk it. This is that really tough site
You sent that to us by email?
by email.
You did?
I didn't get it. I didn't get it.
Did I not send it by email? If I didn't,
That's what we're going with.
Well, I just
Have
don't,
it.
don't want the only copy to just.
no, I have one in here too. I have a paper copy right here.
Okay, because
Yeah.
I think we'd all like to read.
Yeah,
it
yeah, this
prior
is-
to going out there.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. We can go
Why
out.
do you allege this happened, sir?
See, it was one of those slow days where I didn't have anything going on. I think maybe he mailed it to me and I just copied it, but if not, we'll scan it and send it out to you.
Yeah, please.
But it's like a 4-page thing, and they go through the different things that the Wetland Protection Act protects and says why what he's doing won't impact those values. So it's an interesting argument, and we have to go through it step by step and see if, you know, Chris is in agreement with this and we're in agreement with it, so.
Okay.
And then the Toll Brothers project, you know, we were looking for someone who hasn't been involved in the Pulte project or anything on the proving grounds, or who has worked for some of these other local engineers like Paul and Paul Marabito and Orenberg and those guys. So Chris has done a lot of this kind of work, and the way I left it was we'll probably start by taking the old ORAD that was approved 8 years ago, going through that thoroughly just to see what was said the first time. We have a new ANRAD coming in, and see how that compares with the old ORAD. Are they missing things totally? Are they checking out new areas? and then having Chris walk the site. And then Penny and I were talking to abutters last night who have said, there's some areas we're wondering about. We may have more wetlands than you know about. So we'll ask people to identify those with us, and then we can check it out. And then if it looks like it should be reviewed, have Chris go back out there. So first step will be laying out what we think the scope of work is, have Chris give a bid to us, and we'll give it to Toll Brothers. And we'll have to get out there, sometime in the next, 2 or 3 weeks to walk it.
Yeah, we do have a time frame there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
we
I
can
think
come.
they're going to be filing by the 23rd, so we should have the paperwork by then, and then the meeting will be August 6th.
So it's, maybe, Chris, you want to jump in a little bit and just, it's pretty impressive. Good list of credentials here.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll just give you a quick 3-minute synopsis of who I am and what we've been doing with the company. I'm a professional wetland scientist through the Society of Wetland Scientists. I'm also a certified wetland scientist in New Hampshire, and I'm also a registered professional soil scientist. So we know soils well. I know soils well. And my staff are all PWS certified, and they're also registered soil scientists as well. So we've tried to fill that niche. The firm primarily focuses on wetland delineations, rare species surveys. We also do vernal pool assessments, wildlife habitat assessments, things along those lines, under the Wetlands Protection Act and various local bylaws. I'd say about 25% of our work is municipal review. We do the exclusive reviews in Southborough and Hopkinton for the conservation commissions in those towns, and we also have worked for other towns along the South Shore, similar to what would be here as needed, because we do work in those towns for developers, and then if we're not working in front of the town, we'll come in and do reviews occasionally. So we're familiar with various town bylaws. We're very familiar with the Wetlands Protection Act. We're also familiar with other state and federal permitting as well, because we do deal with a variety of projects. We've worked pretty much across all sectors. We've done a lot of commercial development, redevelopment, residential projects from single-family homes to just large-scale subdivisions, similar to what we'll be, I'm guessing, presented with the Toll Brothers here. We've also worked a lot of transportation projects while working at other firms. We've also been doing quite a bit of solar projects and telecom projects throughout New England, primarily with telecom, solar mostly in Massachusetts. My background, I went to Cornell for biology, studied there, and went on to do a bit more wildlife after that. And I moved out to California for a year to get my master's at Stanford. And then when I came back, decided I wanted to focus on soil science. So I went to UMass Amherst, my free time, to get my master's in soil science, which I think is a good niche. I know the old school way of doing things was focused on vegetation, but soils are critical in analysis these days for really identifying an accurate line for wetlands, in my opinion. So I think we've, not just myself, but my team of guys, there's 3 of us in my firm. I've been in business, so it'll be 6 years this September, and I've been doing this for almost 15 years. So, all in Massachusetts, primarily Massachusetts, and we've expanded primarily with telecom to the other New England states. So that's the short summary.
Sure. Just couple of quick questions.
Sure.
For coastal work, coastal resources and things like that, have you dealt with some of those issues?
Yes.
Like the mine at Glades Road will have some top of bank. Most of it will be this isolated wetlands, but there are multiple issues there. And the same thing with the Toll Brothers piece.
Yes, I've personally done numerous coastal projects along the coast. We've worked in Quincy, worked in most of the coastal towns along the South Shore. My undergrad degree was primarily focused on ecology and evolution. I also took a second concentration in marine biology. So I like the coastal towns and I like the coastal work. So we're well versed on it, especially Coastal Bank with the DEP policy on that. So.
Good. That's great. Penny,
No, I don't have any questions. I'm interested to see how things go.
No, welcome. Looking forward to working with you.
Same here. Great.
Terrific.
Lisa?
I appreciate you taking the time to have me in here tonight.
No, we're glad to like to work with some different folks, and I think Pat's point that, you know, haven't been in front of our commission representing other people is probably a positive thing. You know, it's hard to be on both sides.
Right.
So, and looking at the projects that you've done, certainly you're competent to deal with these pieces, so.
We appreciate it, and I know everyone says it's hard to work on both sides. So far, we've had a good balance with that. 'Cause we've been doing municipal review work for 3 or 4 years now with those towns. And
If you're doing it by the book, it really shouldn't matter.
that's what we do. We, you know, for both sides, we come out, we give a fair line, and then we tell the developers we work for, we're going to permit what we can for you, but we're going to find the wetland line, and we tell the commissions we work in front of, we're going to find the wetland line, and you know, we'll let you know what they, you know, if they're allowed to develop it or not. So.
It is sort of always a tricky spot. It's not like a boundary where you can just say it's
Right, it's exactly here.
12 feet
right,
off
yeah,
of the
right.
here and
Right.
works. The part that I can't do is I'm not great with colors. Like, I can take space and dimension and all that sort of thing, but when you look at those color sheets and you have that fan of colors and
Soils.
yeah, is this yellow or is it brown or is it gray?
You get a knack for it after a while, so
You gotta get a master's in soils.
I guess.
it helps.
Yes.
Chris, I'm
Dan.
assuming you've worked in projects that may have had some controversy to them or some active participation from town members, et cetera?
We have. We were in Newbury last night for a solar development project, and we had about 45 abutters show up. So we're familiar with contention. We're familiar with.
I'm just gonna say, any sizable project that has humans involved has, yeah, there hasn't been one yet that is,
Great.
Yeah, we're familiar with contention. So
Well, appreciate you coming down here tonight, and we'll look forward to working with you.
I look forward to working with you all too. Thank you.
Thank you.
thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Okay.
Keep that in the,
All right.
do you want to take that, or do you want us to hang on
Oh,
to
you can
this?
keep that if you want to
Keep that in the office.
Okay.
That'd be great.
All right. See ya.
Actually, we
Thanks for
put that
coming
in with it.
Thank you, Chris.
Certainly.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks, Chris.
Grad in 2 years.
So
So
you'll
the-
email us that.
Yeah, and we should be, oh, yes, the
Please. don't
Glades
forget.
Road, yep.
So that, you're saying that the RDA for 92 Clap Road, we're gonna do that after the,
Yeah, they should get this, they should close out the old project, move the trampoline, do the plantings.
so do we want to continue this again?
Yeah, we can just continue, because I think it's just a matter of planting a couple plants and taking that out of
But
there,
how
so.
long do you want me to go out? This.
Yeah, maybe skip this next one and go the fall. Can we do that on
Look at them up.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
And they're aware of that?
Last time I talked to her, I said I'd be out, it's been crazy, so. Yeah,
Okay.
they'll be okay with that.
Okay.
Okay, I make a motion to continue the RDA for Howe 92 Clap Road to August 20th.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
I guess, Mr. Morse, are you the next? So this is Morse 77 Barry's Landing pesticide use.
Yes. Good evening. Tonight, I'm before you basically on an informal basis to discuss one of the conditions that was issued, not just with 7 Barry's Landing, but it's been issued now as one of your special conditions on a number of my projects. I'm looking for some input and discussion on it, and if it warrants it, I would then be applying probably for an amended order of conditions, specifically on the 7 Barry's Landing project. The condition that I'm here for to discuss on that project is condition number 34. It specifically states, it says, no chemical fertilizer, herbicide, or pesticide shall be used at the site. This condition shall survive the issuance of certificate of compliance and shall run with the title to the property. The property owner has some problems with that condition, and as I listen to him, I understand why. That's what brings me here. His problems with that condition are this. He can't go out and apply any sort of pesticide for ticks on the property. He can't treat the house if there's mold. He can't treat if there's termites. He can't apply fertilizer to his lawn. I understand what the intent of this is. I think the intent is to prevent someone from over-applying any of these, especially in the buffer zone. But this condition doesn't say that it's limited just to the buffer zone. It includes his entire property, which, as you know, is several hundred feet away from the river itself. So in doing the research before coming in front of you, I looked at the North River Commission requirements. I've spoken with DEP. I've looked at the wetland requirements. The North River Commission specifically states in their protective order, and Pat has a copy of this, we emailed with Judy Greco, that they allow the use of pesticides within the corridor as long as they comply with the rules and regulations of the State Pesticide Board. The North River Commission allows the use of fertilizers for residential lawn use. What I would propose, if the commission was up for it, would be to try to come in and ask for an amended condition. That condition specifically would be more along the lines of allowing the use within the 100-foot buffer zone in accordance with the Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources. That department, they are the ones that certify people to apply the pesticides, they certify people to apply fertilizers, and they have strict guidelines on the quantities and amounts that can be applied. Your condition prohibits any of this on all of the property, and that is a concern for the property owner.
Yeah, Pat, why don't you,
Yeah, I was just going to mention a couple of things. I mean, I think the wording of our conditions and our regulations is very broad. Like Greg says, it kind of restricts everything. So that might be an issue. The problem for us is it's in the regulations. It's actually a regulation that talks about a definition it is alter, and affecting change in water temperature, biochemical oxygen demand, or other physical or chemical characteristics, and use of chemicals for plant or pest control. So it's actually in there as a possible altering. So I mean, it would be going against the regs, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't be thinking about how our regs are worded, because this goes way back, and maybe this is
Right.
not appropriate. Maybe DEP has some other guidelines. But on the North River Commission piece, they are pretty strict about no pesticides within 100 feet of the natural bank. So,
Correct.
so even if we had allowed it, they wouldn't allow that. And so it's
Correct.
within, I understand this house
The
is further
the
back.
corridor is 300 feet.
Yeah, so, but I mean, I think part of it he's restricted by the North River Commission, part of it is the language in our thing, and I don't know if that means a revision to our regulations. I don't know how we amend an order to go against the wording in the regs, but we could certainly run things by legal counsel and get a ruling from them on it. But we also want to protect all the resources. I mean, Carol printed out a bunch of handouts today that everybody has about what the impacts are from insecticide and herbicides and everything on wetlands.
There should be a delineation, though, I agree, or else you could have a 50-acre property that part of it's in the buffer zone, and you can't use anything on the whole property.
Right.
That really doesn't,
Right. Or inside the house, and it may,
Right,
be
right.
something, right. No, I agree with Greg's point that it's a very
what was the-
stringent.
Statute that you were suggesting that we adhere to or
The
refer to?
the pesticide and fertilizer regulations established under the Department of Agricultural Resources in Massachusetts. There's specific federal law and state law that establish this licensing board, which licenses people to apply fertilizers and to supply pesticides.
So, under your suggestion, would the people that are applying this need to be licensed?
I would think so, and I think the property owner would be fine with that if it was a requirement that they be licensed by the Department of Agriculture with the state. That way, there's a little bit of surety on your side that someone licensed is doing it versus a homeowner going out. And I think the intent of the regulation is, again, not to prohibit this, but it's to make sure that it's done in an appropriate fashion for the site.
Can I ask one more question, Frank? I'm sorry, am I
yeah,
hogging?
no, go ahead.
no, you can't, you're
Just to
done.
clarify
Yep.
another issue. So what you're suggesting, if I have it right, is that the change would apply to all the property, including the buffer zone or the 200 feet by the river area. That's what you're suggesting, that not only would we change the regulations for the areas not under our purview, but also the ones that are.
Yeah, I mean, right now, your condition says the site, which includes all the area outside the buffers. I don't know if you'd want to include it to just say within the buffer zone, or if you still want to encompass the whole site, right? But,
Pat, do our rules allow us to encompass an entire property as opposed to the area that we're permitting?
The order of conditions applies to the site, applies to the lot, so it doesn't say within the buffer. I mean, it probably should have when it was.
Right, it should be,
yes.
To be
I mean,
honest,
that's
what
one
I
part of the problem.
always assumed. We're talking about in the buffer zone.
Right, it needs to be specific,
Under
right.
our jurisdiction.
Right.
What you're doing the rest of your yard,
Well, I mean,
you know,
if we apply that logically, that whatever happens 20 feet away from the buffer zone is going to happen in the buffer zone.
Yes, that's,
That-
there's-
I mean, so
well, but that's the
there's a
reason
problem.
there's a buffer zone.
so it
The
can-
buffer zone itself is to displace you from the wetland. You're 50 feet away
Yeah.
from
Or
the
100.
wetland, which is really not the wetland, it's where you start transitioning to
Yeah.
wetland. But that's the whole point.
Yeah,
Greg, you mentioned the DEP language too. What did Mass DEP say?
They have no regulation. They leave it up to the local authority for fertilizer use. For herbicide and pesticide use, they defer to the Mass General Law,
is that
which
the
is
state
which is the
pesticide board?
Exactly, the
Yeah.
Department of Agricultural Resources.
Agriculture resources, though, they seem to be a little looser than some other groups because they're encouraging agriculture. So they may
Yep.
not be the one we want to follow. There may be some middle ground between no use anywhere and agriculture, which allows spraying on cranberry bogs and all that. We may not, unless it's a commercial operation that has the exemption, we may not want to allow that.
Could we consider something a little more natural and less toxic for people as well as animals, as well as fish?
Yeah, some towns I've worked in restrict, fertilizers that it has to be an organic fertilizer.
I
Yep.
mean, I have a whole list of ways to kill ants and all these other things, and they're all natural, that I've been using for years, that have worked really well. And we had a 2.5 acre lot in New Hampshire with farmland surrounding it, and we had all kinds of creepy things.
But even with that, we need to, I think, be more specific on, if somebody's got 50 acres and a quarter of an acre of it's in a buffer zone, you don't say you can't, the
Right.
other 49 acres, you can't,
Within what's
Right,
within our
right,
jurisdiction,
yes.
because that's
Yes.
what we're supposed to be protecting.
right.
Well, your bylaw does give you the authority in the judgment of the Conservation Commission to regulate activities outside of the buffer zones. And specifically in this order of conditions, it does say the site, so we have to consider that the entire property.
Even if it were just our jurisdiction, it would be 200 feet because we had the river's protection for this particular house.
Yeah.
Right, so.
Right, but jurisdictional is different from a resource area too. Like, we have people who treat the 100-foot like a no-build, but it's not a no-build. It means if they're outside the 100-foot, they don't even need to talk to us.
But a riverfront is the whole
Right,
200.
right, yes,
Right,
yes.
right.
And the river, I was just saying,
Yeah. Right.
like I know what Penny said, a lot of times we've talked in different projects saying any of the lawn in the 50-foot buffer could not. Verbally, that's what we said. Maybe didn't the
Well, we've done the
conditions.
same, we've been talking about irrigation and.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was talking to John Clarkson today, we were just talking about water use
Yeah.
and they're hopeful that they can get more pieces in to restrict some of that, but that's another.
Through the water department, or they're asking us to?
Well, he wants to come in and have a discussion over some of that, so all of this is in play
Yeah.
a little bit.
I mean, you would think that DEP or MACC would have suggested guidelines on this, that, anybody could tack on to their own regs.
And I certainly wouldn't want to be restricted, I know even with, so you mentioned termites or
Yep.
insects or whatever.
That's not our intent.
But a lot of those companies are now treating with different chemicals just because of their liability.
Yeah.
They're not spraying chemicals nearly as much. They're using baits, they're using
Or
other.
they're changing the pH. So, one of the best ways to stop the growth of mold is by changing the pH. And vinegar is one of the best ways to do that because mold can't grow in a low pH. And it doesn't hurt anything.
But
So I think,
it gets us into
well,
another.
further
like, it's difficult to
defining
enforce.
the area that it applies to, further defining who's allowed to, licensed person, and further defining the types seems to get us to where we want to be.
But we would have to change our own regs at this.
Yeah, I mean, the way that it's worded, it does prohibit. And it's pretty much an unenforceable regulations, which is a
Right.
problem,
I mean, it's good for your client to say, listen, I want to do the right thing.
Right.
Right, because if you make it too prohibitive, a lot of people are just going to go do it anyway.
Under
you don't give them a way to do
your
it the right
definition
way.
of alter, anyone that fertilizes their lawn has to file a notice of intent. Anyone that sprays for ticks, anyone that has termite damage has to file for a notice of intent. So we're just trying to change the conditions so this doesn't pop up on a title when someone goes to sell the house and they see that they can't do some of these things. We want them to be aware of it. Again, I think the intent here
I
is
guess I never
limiting.
interpreted it that way, to be honest with you. I probably haven't followed the rule myself that way.
We also occasionally will require that invasives get treated, and they're treated with a chemical, and it's sometimes in the edge of the wetland.
Right.
And it's a trade-off, and it's kind of going against what the wording in the regs is.
But we have had hearings for that, in that regard, when we've had like the MBTA wanting to treat, or some other customers, like client,
At the Marine Center, yep.
applicants have come in and said, we want to treat these areas, and they've filed and given us, we've had folks in that have explained the whole treatment process to do that. Not that I want to hear that from everybody.
No, that's been more just invasives, though.
Right.
They've done that.
Yeah.
Really happy you brought this up, Greg. This is,
Believe me.
no, it's a good thing to,
Something that,
yeah. Because we've talked about what needs to be changed in our regs anyway, and this seems to be something that we should be reconsidering. It doesn't.
Yeah, it's not defined well and it's overly broad.
Right, well, the things that Bill brought up about, maybe there's an area, maybe there's a required applicator, type of qualified person, and maybe certain chemicals are allowed and certain ones are not allowed.
Right.
I mean,
Well,
it's
like I
gonna
say,
take a
some
little
people just
research.
over-apply stuff.
Yes, yes, I
If
know.
we had a certified person, we would hope that they wouldn't.
Right.
So, do we have to talk to legal about changing this?
I don't know if we have to,
Yeah, I don't know the best way to do it. I mean, we have the language here, and we have, we could check with DEP, we could,
I guess I'd like a little bit more from say, DEP on a few of those pieces, and
yeah,
maybe that we can find a way that, whether we can put in that it's the buffer zones that we're trying to deal with, or whatever would be
yeah.
important.
There's probably some other towns that have like a model that has been approved by DEP.
Right.
I don't know if the Board of Health or anybody like that would get involved because of the water supply and us using chemicals near wetlands which supply the water supply. So,
Can you point us to the area in the Department of Agriculture regs? Just an email or something, whatever.
Yeah, I just printed out their
Is it-
website and their description here. I'll give you that. I can forward you more information on it as well.
somebody took the orders literally. Isn't that
So
interesting?
meanwhile, what do we do about that particular?
Someone that knows what pops up during title exams when properties are transferring.
No,
And
it's
this
a
is
great, it's a great
significant
point. It should be fixed. It's overly broad and not specific.
Okay.
I mean, I just always assumed, which you're not supposed to
Can
do.
we take this up again at a,
Absolutely.
Want to
All
go out
right,
a
so
couple?
DEP, MACC, Board of Health, and then,
All right, in the meantime, we'll have some dialogue, but maybe we don't want to, the next meeting's got a lot.
Next
Going on.
meeting, we really,
So what was it, the 20th?
20th.
yeah.
yeah,
And if we have some things that we want some input from you, or if you have
Yeah.
anything else you want to add, just keep at it, and
yeah.
Sure.
we'll do that, all right?
Yeah, we could send you what we get as it comes in too, so you can, give us your thoughts.
Yeah, and if you have seen bylaws in other towns or anything you think would be helpful as a guideline,
Yeah, I know,
Sure.
like I said, I've gotten conditions in other towns where they've restricted the types of fertilizers. So I'll thumb through some of those orders and see what the language is elsewhere.
Do they also restrict the area to the area of concern or to the whole
I'd
property?
have to read the language, I don't remember off the top of my head.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for
Thanks.
taking it up, I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
I appreciate your clients.
Makes a good point.
Let's highlight the chapters and codes, so, yeah.
Want to do, O'Donoghue, the
Yep.
notice of intent? Anybody in the audience, 44 Crescent Ave? Well, that is you. On July 16th, 2014, 6:40 PM, the Town Hall, Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700 Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of John O'Donoghue to raise and rebuild a dwelling located at 44 Crescent Ave, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Good evening.
Good evening. Again, for the record, Gregory Morse Engineering, representing John O'Donoghue, applicant. We're here for a notice of intent associated with the raising and reconstruction of a single-family home at 44 Crescent Avenue. The existing site shown here on the site plan, the property line is shown in bold. There's an existing house.
Can everybody see that? I'm sorry, this isn't, I wonder if maybe you ought to come over here, Greg, and face it more towards.
Windy over here.
Oh,
Does that help?
So the existing property is developed right now with a single-family home, shown in light gray on the property here. The property in total is 11,246 square feet. The resource areas that we have on the site are primarily out here. We have the Atlantic Ocean. Off of the Atlantic Ocean, we have a series of velocity zones. The velocity zones are entirely in this area back here, which is made up of an armored stone embankment. Up at the top of that embankment, we have the top of Coastal Bank, shown in blue. DEP has a policy 92-1, which is clear in defining coastal banks in a case like this, that the coastal bank, the top of it, is the first observable break and slope where it ceases to be at a 4-to-1 embankment. Off of that blue line, we have the town's local 50-foot buffer zone shown in red, and we have a 100-foot wetland buffer zone shown in green. The majority of the site here with the existing house has been developed up to the back of the property right here where there is a split rail fence. It's all lawn surface in the back of the house. What we're proposing is a new single-family dwelling. It largely sits in the same location as the existing house. I've shaded it in orange. A couple of points that I'll make for the existing house. The existing house sits at 45.5 feet from the coastal bank. The new house we've pulled back to 53.5 feet from the coastal bank. The existing deck, which extended out off the back of the existing house, was at 28.9 feet setback. We have a proposed deck at 29.5 feet from the coastal bank. the existing structure area within the 50-foot buffer zone, the existing house and the existing deck make up 446 square feet. With our proposed structure, it's 428 square feet just of deck area. No more house structure within the 50-foot buffer zone. The driveway location stays in the same location. The property is serviced by municipal water and sewer off of Crescent, which will remain in the same locations. We've added dry wells to handle roof runoff, although the increase in impervious area at this site is negligible. There's no change in the topography inside the 50-foot buffer zone. It remains as existing lawn as it does today. At the back of that lawn, again, is a split rail fence which demarcates the lawn area, prevents encroachment out there onto the coastal bank area or onto the storm wetland. DEP issued no comments on this project. Turn it over for any questions.
Okay. Penny?
Is the deck sitting on the ground or?
It's a first floor deck.
Yeah, it's pretty level. I was out there today. I don't have any questions right now. Bill?
Bill?
No, it looks like what was there. This is close to what was there, so it's almost a, an existing condition type of idea that it does seem, it's certainly disturbing less of the 50-foot and coastal bank area, so I think it's an improvement from what's there.
I have
Richard?
No
nothing additional.
questions. Looks good.
Pat?
There's a retaining wall going perpendicular to the bank. Is that staying?
Out here in the front?
Yeah,
That'll most likely stay right along the edge of the driveway there.
okay. And the solid line where the deck is, I measured off the top of the bank to the current deck, and I had 29 feet.
Yeah, I've got it at 28.9.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
And then the new piece seems to be closer to the, isn't the new piece closer to the top of the bank?
No, it's at 29 and a half. It's almost the same location.
So a piece of the, all right, where the porch is now,
Yep, with a porch.
part of that becomes deck area,
Correct,
and then the house is beyond that.
correct.
Okay. And the deck, it's close to the ground, is it sonotubes or some type of foundation?
Yeah, it's on
or-
sonotubes. Correct.
Okay. I mean, it is, are you saying it's not getting closer to the
Right.
top of the bank except for,
The deck is no
That was kinda
closer
smart
than
to flip
the
it.
deck that exists there.
So it encroaches.
so we're replacing some of the house with some deck and we're no closer?
Correct. So again, yeah,
Yeah,
the
that's right.
structure area within that 50-foot right now is made up. The existing house in the 50-foot is 31 square feet. The existing deck in the 50-foot is 415 square feet, to make up a total of 446. The proposed structure is deck only.
Okay.
That's 428.
So,
yes.
okay, on that side of the house then, the closest side to the bank, where the existing house ends and then the deck starts, where is the new house compared to the existing house? Like
Back approximately 12 feet
further toward the street,
further toward the street.
and then it's replaced by deck, and then deck extends out, okay. And you have roof drains?
Yeah,
Is
we
that-
added roof drains. The project, the increase in impervious area, existing impervious house is 2207 square feet. It's going up to 2511, so you're talking 300 square feet of increased impervious on the site. So it doesn't
Increase.
trigger the stormwater bylaw. But to make up that 300 square feet, we've added 4 roof dry wells, which don't exist today.
Do you have an area for stockpile and for dumpster and things like that on you?
I didn't show an area for the
Yeah.
stockpile here. The dumpsters will be removed off-site as the existing house is
Okay.
raised. We could entertain a condition if you wanted to specify that it's outside
Just no yeah, no closer.
Are you using a silk sock or?
Yep, around the property line here, we just ran a silt fence down, silt fence here. It's relatively flat topography and it is fully vegetated with, you know, pretty lush lawn surface, so I don't see much erosion coming off of this site. So it is just a silt fence, but it does wrap the limit of work up to the 100-foot buffer zones.
Okay.
So in your opinion too, the stability of the bank won't be threatened by?
Won't be compromised. We're not doing any work up near the bank itself. We're not adding any runoff to the bank. We're not changing topography up to the bank. So
It's a high bank, it's up pretty high.
it does.
Yeah.
They call it a cliff.
Yeah, right.
Anybody in the audience want to speak to this? Any butters or any interest or any questions for the engineer? Penny, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I'm okay.
Okay.
Motion.
I make a motion to close.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Thank you.
It's probably good to leave that wall. I think taking that retaining wall out would stabilize.
Yeah.
And ripping it out, God knows what that would do.
Too fast, you're gonna slow it down.
Try not to, believe me.
Oh,
And I'm just curious.
What's that?
we were just talking about there's a retaining wall that goes fairly close to the bank, and we're kind of hoping that that doesn't get taken out. So that can be, yeah, yeah. Oh, no. one in the back.
No, in the back, there's nothing changing.
Yeah, because that's holding
That's
up.
staying.
Yeah, yeah.
Greg,
I just
why don't you discuss that in the hall, all right? Thank you. Enforcement orders?
Okay. 277, Chief Justice?
Sure.
Okay,
Mr. Bungazone?
yeah.
Your number is actually 275.
275?
Yes. 277's the house next to me.
Okay.
I was supposed to be 283, but the town said it had to be 275, so it was changed.
Okay,
that was
thank you. Why don't I let Pat,
Okay,
excuse me,
this,
sir, do you mind just, we could discuss it in the hallway, thank you.
okay, an order of conditions was issued a couple of years ago for this site, and it's 2 houses, plus a street, plus a stormwater basin in the front. And it's the one right down by the Rotary at Chief Justice Cushing. It was pretty strict, tight area to build in because of the riverfront area and a bordering vegetated wetland. So it was delineated and engineered by Mackenzie Engineering, and plantings were required along the 50-foot buffer at one point and 200-foot buffer at the other. Didn't leave much area for the lawn, so we were concerned. We talked about that to the builder, and they said, we'll put the plantings in, we'll put some conservation posts, and it'll be, you know, part of the deed and part of the order of conditions. But so as time goes on, we're looking at it now, and there's lawn established in an area that we all felt would be buffer. So I went out there, I met with Peter, and I spoke with the builder on it, and it does appear that now there's, you know, infringement into the buffer with lawn. So, you know, under the order of conditions, we don't allow anything within the 50 on the new lot like that. So there was a discussion about what happened to the plants, or the plants taken out. The most recent thing is I talked with the builder, Jay Ellis, who did not own the property. It's owned by a third party. Jay built it, and the plants were put in, but not throughout the whole site. There's plantings called for around the basin, and they weren't put in because the basin wasn't done yet. But the plants were along the hay bale line in between the two properties. You know, without it being marked as such, you may not realize that they were planted as a delineation. So we could go back and forth on that. But, so they're no longer there. And the basin, when I talked to Peter the first time, I thought that the basin was going to be a mowed basin, but it's not. It's actually going to be a wet basin, the way it was designed. So it's not going to, we had talked maybe it should be drying out in 48 hours, but it's not. It's a basin that will hold water, different type of basin. So at this point, Jay Ellis came back in and staked out with the surveyor where the stake should be in the conservation posts.
Were the conservation posts ever installed?
They weren't installed as far as, yeah, I don't think Peter had, I think he might have had stakes at one time, so he knew where to put the plants, but the posts were not in.
Okay. And that is the responsibility of the initial applicant.
Well, he brought me out to look at the plantings, but he wasn't done with the basin, he wasn't done with the posts. So he didn't request a certificate of compliance, he just wanted to make sure that we knew the plants were in.
So we don't, right now, that property does not have a certificate of compliance?
No, it hasn't been requested. The final coat on the shared driveway was just done a couple of weeks ago, and there was some stormwater diversion thing put in the driveway to direct water into the basin.
Okay.
So, but I think as he put the plants in, he wanted it to be known, okay, I've done the plants and, you know, I'm doing what I needed to do. So he just called me out there, but it wasn't part of certificate of compliance. So.
Okay. What we usually do is let some individual members ask a couple of questions.
I understand.
And then you'll have a
That's
chance
fine.
to
That's
speak
fine.
to that, all right?
Thank you.
Any?
You've gone into the buffer zone, is that right? With your grass and plantings?
What there was, it was poison ivy. Now, first I'd like to say, there was never any blueberry bushes or planting on my lot. There was on the house next to me that was finished 8 months prior to mine. But after that house was done, it was a construction site. There was nothing planted. And the builder is saying that he did plant it, and I asked him, I said, you know, you don't think I'm stupid, do you? There was never anything there, and he's trying to say it was there, and now it's gone. It's just ludicrous, it really is.
My question to
Right,
you, you have planted lawn in the buffer zone?
There was poison ivy there, and I took
I'm
out the poison
asking
ivy,
whether
and
you
I
planted
put
lawn.
grass down. I
You
put grass
planted,
down.
so that is a no-no.
I wasn't, it wasn't revealed to me that there was a do not disturb zone, or that it was it wasn't explained to me that there was any conditional there. I didn't even know they had a retention basin.
He must be
Now-
this house, because there's the
Now,
basin.
we go back to November of 2013. I do believe you came in and you asked for another parking area for your
Correct.
son.
Correct.
At that point in time, we gave you permission to put the parking area on your grass, and you were not to go into the buffer zone. So, my recollection is, you knew you couldn't, you weren't allowed to go out back. You had to put that parking pad on your existing grass. Now we have a problem, and we have to look at the orders, the original orders, and there was a reason for those original orders, and there's a reason that so much of your land
I understand.
is not buildable.
I understand.
And so, the way I look at it, we've got to get out the original orders, get out the plan, and the buffer zone has, whether
That-
it's you or Mr. Ellis doing it, it has to be marked, the proper plantings put in, the sod taken out, and whatever doesn't belong there has to come
I
out.
understand. My only contention is during the driveway, I never knew where the buffer zone began or ended. I've been in the house for 4 months, and there's nothing there to mark it.
Well, you know,
And I have no problem with that. I took out poison ivy, and I put some grass down.
I understand you don't want poison ivy. I don't want poison ivy, but, you know, that's kind of part of the buffer zone. The grass is not acceptable.
I understand. I
Okay.
understand.
Bill?
Okay, so the way, in summary, We have a buffer zone infringement, we have the plantings that are not complete, that was an order of condition. We have the posts that are not in, that was an order of condition. And what about the basin? Does the basin, the way that it exists now, comply with our understanding of the way it was supposed to be?
Yeah, he hasn't submitted an as-built on the basin yet.
Okay.
But once the property is sold, the lot was sold, the basin becomes the responsibility of the homeowner. So during the closing, there must have been paperwork that talked about the buffer zone mitigation, planting, and post-development best management. I mean, there's an order that was part of the deed, and, I mean, all that should have, I don't know why it didn't happen, but all that should have been, you know,
At the
clear.
time of the closing, there was a stack about 3 inches thick, and they said, sign, 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 and I didn't read.
That's true.
I probably should have read it, but I did not.
If you had an attorney, he should have pointed out to you that there was,
That's
It was an attorney for the bank.
yeah.
It's their responsibility.
Yeah, they should have too, because it's a concern for them. If you walked away from the house, now they got a house with a problem. But,
I actually am glad this came up, because if and when I sold the house, this would be an issue.
Right.
So I want this.
unless they got a
straightened
bad
out.
attorney.
Excuse me?
Unless they had a bad attorney too, then.
No,
It would have, and it is odd, but sometimes these things pass through two or three passings.
no,
And then finally, there's somebody
Yeah,
reads it
no,
and says, oh, hold the
Yeah,
phone.
wait.
We gotta do this. Who's Richie?
Everything that Bill mentioned, and it doesn't sound like you want to do anything but get it right.
correct,
Okay.
correct.
So what do we have to do to get it right? I mean,
I
Get
guess-
the plan out, put the posts in, do the plantings, and, yeah,
Well,
restore.
I guess from my looking at it, I think what Mr. Bungazone needs to do is go back through this paperwork, figure out who was supposed to do what. From our standpoint, it's irrelevant to us who does it. Unfortunately, right now, you're the guy without a seat.
Right.
But,
No, I understand.
Yeah.
but if you, if the liability of this should fall on the builder, the applicant was Mr. Ellis.
This was a
He's
condition.
the applicant, yes, not the
The-
owner, but the applicant.
The previous owner was Old Webster Street LLC, which is Eric Lamont.
Okay.
This was a condition for the property to get the permit.
Right.
So I believe, in my layman's terms, that it should be their responsibility to fulfill their requirement.
I think that they were the applicant, and if they passed it on, that we should have got some sort of notification or something, that this got moved on to somebody else. Again, we shouldn't be, it shouldn't be our responsibility to be chasing somebody. Unfortunately, we're not gonna issue a certificate of compliance until the property's the way it's supposed to be. Which means you, unfortunately, probably are the one that are gonna have to go back to,
You're holding the bag, and then,
Once again,
yeah.
yeah. But, I would think that you'd be talking with that bank attorney and say, hey, wait a minute, I didn't know I was doing all of this, and
and I
these
will
things
do that. Thank you.
have to be completed. We're not gonna tell you to go get this done tomorrow, but we would like to see it
No
resolved
problem. No problem.
soon. I think to Penny's point, we don't want to see any more encroachment on the wetlands. If you have some different ways of landscaping or whatever, as long as it meets the requirements, I'm not going to tell
More than
you.
happy to work with everybody.
But I think we do have to get this. It's a sensitive site. You know that you're close to the reservoir. All those sort of things play in there. And we put those orders in because we felt that was the only way that the property could be built on. So we'd like to see that done. I do think we should make sure that the other home that's above this, that they understand what they have as well.
See, it was never disclosed to me that there's a do not disturb area, ignorance is not an excuse, I understand, but
Yep.
I'm not a mind reader.
Well,
And if I'd known,
a lot of people don't see these things, and a lot of people are not aware of the Wetlands Protection Act the way it should happen. But at any rate, we just want to see it
I got you.
corrected, and
I
I
got
think
you.
that you'd want to as well, so that you
course.
can keep going. I I think it's gonna take you a little time to do that.
Yeah, there's also the whole post-development BMPs for this basin that is your responsibility according to what the deed is. So it's the ongoing maintenance, and it's only your lot that has to maintain the basin. It falls to lot one, so.
How do I find out what's involved in maintaining and what's requirements are?
Yeah, I can give you a copy of this. This is like a three-page, what you have to do to the basin, mow it and, but there's also, you're in a tricky spot as far as insecticides, pesticides, herbicides, and all that stuff, because you're right across from the reservoir. And this body of water that, on overflow, will go into the street and hopefully not into the reservoir, but, I mean, it comes out onto Chief Justice Cushion during a heavy rain, so
Right.
Like today.
it's a sensitive spot. But
I just think we should probably give Mr. Bunger's some time to get this sorted out. Obviously, we don't want you to go any closer.
No,
To those
trust me,
areas.
this will get corrected, rest assured.
And, I don't know, what do you, I mean, we meet every 2 weeks, but our next meeting is pretty busy, so do you wanna, can you get back to us by August 20th with some information?
Yes, of course.
Let us know, and if you have anything in the meantime, if you've got some info, obviously Pat's,
I'll share that with Pat.
that would be good.
And Pete, if there's any information that you have that you don't need copied, just let me know what you have, and I'll send you whatever you don't have, because there's,
No, I
a couple
don't
of
have
different
anything.
things. Yeah, you just have, I think you have this one.
Yes.
That's- Okay,
Yeah. Do you have a copy of the orders?
No.
Okay.
okay, we can
You
get
could
that.
see Carol,
Yeah.
during the week, and she's not in on Fridays, but,
vacation.
get a,
This week.
get a copy of the orders
Thank you.
would be good, and then, that's where I'd start if I were you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay? Great.
As you turn the corner right here.
Anybody else?
No, the next
Good
one.
luck with that.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Have a good evening.
All right, I'm around all next week, so let me know what you do and don't have, or you may not know what you don't have.
Anything.
All right. Well, if you go through the stack and find anything, let me know. Okay.
Thanks for coming in.
Time is this continued to issue
Oh, yeah, do we want
left.
to,
It's over here.
so well, we don't really have to continue
Enforcement
it
orders
because
don't
it's-
have times, yeah.
But we will be discussing it on the 20th.
Okay.
Yes.
Is it Moskowitz? Is that right?
Yes, yep,
58 Water
158.
Street?
Right, he may not be in, he came into the office this week, I met with him. This was the one where there's, a couple of people have been out there.
I went
where
out
there
there
was
the
a-
day before yesterday.
Yeah, blockage at a pipe of a driveway, and it is impacting abutting properties. So we sent the letter, and I met with him in the office this week, and there was a long history. There was an enforcement order back several years ago, and I think some of you were still on it, but it was back in 2009. There was a pipe put in, and the enforcement order required an engineering plan for restoration to be sent into the commission. And somewhere along the line, the plan didn't come in, and the property owner had a contractor put a pipe in. So may have, may not been put in right. I spoke with the contractor today. He said that when he went out there, they had all intentions of laying the pipe the right way. They found it was all ledge. So the pipe may
So
not
you met
be-
with Mr. Bonomi?
Spoke with him, yeah,
Okay.
today. So the pipe, is there, but it may not be at the elevation that would have been required if an engineer had submitted plans on it. So, and it didn't meet the stream crossing standards at the time. DEP had a stream crossing standards, and it wouldn't have been allowing a pipe there anyway for a stream. Would have been a box culvert with a natural bottom to it. The other issue is the width of the road expanded over time with fill, which would be filling in a wetland, which would be a significant issue there. So the files that we have, he referred to a Bob Crawford plan, but Bob had done some septic work there. He wasn't sure if he was contacted about the crossing, so he was gonna check his records and get back
I
to
don't
us.
remember meeting with Bob Crawford
Yeah,
out there.
yeah. So he was there for the septic, but maybe not for the
Right.
road. So what we have now is, there was no notice of intent filed, no order of conditions for work in a wetland. It was just an enforcement order where some informal pipe dropping was done. So,
Have you been there, Frank? Have you seen
Oh, yeah. Well, it's
mean-
been a while.
The pipe misses the water by
Well, it's gotta be a lot of
feet.
water.
Right.
But the other thing is that
Yeah, I'm sorry, ma'am. Do you want to?
Previously, when I lived there 30 years ago, it was the same situation. Susan Campbell.
And your address, Susan?
It's 162, directly below the Moskowitz.
Okay. And ma'am?
And this is
Helen Butler, 168 Border Street next to her. And I know Penny came out years ago. and
Years ago.
Well,
looked
then
at-
Frank went out too. We didn't
So
go
the
there.
situation was, when 30 years ago I lived at 150 Border Street, we had a small stream behind our house. That stream is now gone. The situation when I moved to 162 10 years ago was that I had a tiny stream, which now floods my yard and Helen's yard, and I don't know the number, one up. And we've lost many, many trees. And everyone speaks about the ledge. However, the ledge has always been there, and the water flowed through the ledge without any problem until the driveway began to be widened. So there's really two issues. There's the widening of the driveway and the yearly putting down of additional mulch that has basically created a dam. And then there's the issue that the pipe was put in, 1.5 feet above the ledge. So the pipe does absolutely nothing. But I believe the situation really has been caused by the fill and the widening of the driveway. And I have no idea whether there was a permit or a study or anything else for that. So subsequently, now my septic system has failed because the water table in the back of my yard has come up 1.5 feet. And in the Butlers, it's the same kind of situation where we can't even walk out there in the back of the yard. And I have some photos that were provided to me by Kristen Lilly, to Helen actually, which I would like to show you. There were gardens out there, there were kids' swing sets, and I have a spruce that I planted when I moved there that is now completely surrounded by this invasive bamboo-like kind of thing. And the other thing that we have is a lot of dead trees. On the Butler's yard, one has fallen, but they're trees that are probably 50, 60 years old. They're large trees, and there's a large number of dead trees. Did I leave anything out?
Okay.
I think so.
So you've had a conversation with the driveway owner,
yes, yeah, we met in the office, yep.
and they're going to get you some more information, or?
He was gonna check with Bob Crawford to see if Bob had any record, and then I called Bob, and Bob was looking for it. But he said that at the time, to get things done, he was told just get the pipe in, work with your contractor, by someone who used to work here, I guess.
Yeah.
So, but who knows, what the situation was. But we have a letter from both of you from 2009, kind of laying
Right, I
out
sent
the
you that
issues,
in
yeah.
2009.
Okay.
But the enforcement order, when you read through it, it says you have to start with a restoration plan being submitted, and you need to have an engineer do it.
Okay.
And so that's where everything stopped, nothing was
So-
done correctly.
So do we want to, we've issued another one.
I think we do an enforcement order or a violation letter. I think we issued a violation letter to get the parties in to talk about it. So that's where we are now. So because originally we thought there might have been an order of conditions and this would be a violation of the order, but it's really a non-follow-through of an enforcement order. So I mean, I think minimally there would have to be some kind of an engineering review of this
Okay.
piece
And then to do any work, they still have,
at the file.
right.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Is Mr. Markowitz, I'm sorry, I just killed his name, but when you spoke to him, did he give you the impression that he would work with us? Okay, nobody followed through the last time, but we got to follow through now.
Well, he had a lot of reasons of why he thinks things are the way they are, and that there are other things contributing to this. So I said, you may want to come to the meeting and talk to everybody. I think he was out of town. I got a hold of his message machine, and he was unavailable, so he may not be around tonight. But I told him we were going to be talking about it anyway, and there would be abutters, and we have the old files, and I'd be getting back to him, so.
Well, why don't we do this? I think you should just send them a letter and say that all these things are missing. We need a timeline, or give them one.
That he has to do what he
Yeah.
has to
And we
do
want this
the
stuff
last
in
time.
here by August 20th or whatever.
Yeah, the time for stories is passed.
Yeah, long past.
So now, when was this driveway widened?
Well, I moved in, and did you have a question, Helen?
I was just going to say, I think that no matter what all these stories and history are, that the fact is that the pipe is too high, and even when there's a lot of water out there, a little trickle went through the pipe this year, and we had water up on, as far up on our lawn, that the back part of it couldn't be mowed for the, the first
So, all
month or
right,
so.
yeah, we understand that, and we understand that there's a
Right.
problem. The process is, though, that he's got to pick up the ball on this. We can issue an enforcement order, and we can give him some direction, but whether he actually does it takes a very long time.
Right.
It seems to. And it was at our badgering in 2009 that this order was issued. And I believe I was the one that wrote that letter that I forwarded to Pat. I don't believe that we ever saw the order, and I am, wanting to know, does the order include the driveway as well as the pipe? Because it's really the driveway that's the
I
source
think
of
what
the
Pat said, though, there
problem.
were no orders or conditions.
There's not any in this file, and the old files were just mentioning septic, so I haven't seen an order that had anything to do with the driveway yet, septic
I mean,
enforcement.
And every
yeah.
year, there's more mulch put down, which
Well,
spills
to-
into and
To
blocks.
speak to
it,
that
so-
point, because it's a river, it already has certain conditions that exist, whether we have them in the order of conditions or not. They're already there by the Scituate regulations. So there's things that can and can't be done in proximity to the river.
Okay. It's a river?
Is it an intermittent stream?
Intermittent,
It's
yeah.
intermittent
It's
stream, yeah.
intermittent.
But the
Which
still.
still has-
It was
Still
intermittent.
have steam crossing standards
Yeah.
for intermittent.
Yeah.
I think you went out there, I went out there was talk back and forth, Mr. Bungazone was talk. I don't believe it was ever a hearing on what happened.
I don't think so.
It was
We never
more talk,
attended, yeah.
and he said he'd fix it, and Mr. Bungazone, so that. then it-
Bonomi.
Bonomi, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, man, my brain's gone.
Yeah, Carol printed out all the minutes we had over time, and some sets of the minutes were septic related, and there were 3 different meetings where this was discussed, but it was,
It might have been discussed, but I
Pretty
don't
brief.
think.
Yeah, it wasn't-
I don't think.
there
it was
wasn't a
anything
hearing,
Formal,
right.
a
So-
hearing.
But the septic's nowhere near the stream crossing, as
Right.
you would expect.
Yeah,
Um,
and now
So I guess
we gotta
we
cool
just,
down.
I think we want to give them a time to be in here with
Yeah.
that information. If they don't have it, we're going to issue an enforcement order,
Yeah.
and we'll go from there.
In
I mean,
the
that doesn't
file.
keep you from taking other issues up as well. I mean, the town will deal with the piece that's the Wetlands Protection Act and what we're supposed to do. If your property's damaged by this, obviously you can do other things as well.
So,
As in,
I guess you could file some
Discuss
sort
it
of,
with Legal counsel.
you know,
that would really help me sell my house, I don't think. And my house is currently for sale, so that
Right.
was kind of what prompted the interest in this.
and we'll pursue this, but it's hard to get
gonna
people
take
to move
time.
on. We can
Okay.
eventually issue some fines and things like that, but it's not like,
Right,
It's going to move like a glacier.
right.
But according to this, there was an enforcement order that was issued in 2009. Has this man complied to anything?
well, I think they kind of pacified it a little bit with this pipe as best
Right.
that I can see.
Yeah,
No.
see, there
Did
wasn't
the
a formal
enforcement order
hearing.
specify a pipe?
No.
I don't think so.
We just.
It
we
requested
told
a
them
plan,
to clean it
which-
out and,
Right.
get the water running through. There was all kinds
But
of.
hire an
stuff in
engineer.
it.
Right, but he didn't comply, so really,
No,
No.
it
to
wasn't
start
compliant.
all over again and say we're going to do, yeah, if you look at it, it wasn't complied with. You may have a story, but this is in writing, and you didn't
Yeah,
comply
no.
with it.
We want an engineered plan.
Right.
We didn't get it.
You know, and just, since, there's
And
been a
what-
lot of changes in this commission since that
Right.
occurred.
Since that time, a lot
Right.
of upheaval going on,
So-
so.
The other thing that would help is if there's any pictures of existing conditions from the past. I mean, if there were,
I have
Because
photos
now
of
it's-
those, and I have the photo, I can
Yeah.
take a photo of what it looks like now.
because now it looks like it's blocked there and it's become like a pond.
Yeah.
If there was a showing of vegetation and more like a stream channel, that would be.
I mean, I remember going out like in the spring or after some rain and seeing the backyards flooded and it draining very slowly.
Literally, in the past, there was a swing set where the stream now is, and there was dirt all the way up to the rocks, which is now where all the trees are dead.
Yeah.
But
Do you buy the
again,
property
we,
from the Garrity's?
No,
We bought our.
but I
property from
lived
the
at
Garrity's.
150 when the Garrity's were there, so it was the Garrity's, the Lilies, the Childs.
all right, well, I think that we'll give a time frame of August
Have them
20th.
in for the 20th after filing something.
But we want to see something before that.
Yeah.
And then if not, then we're going to be issuing another enforcement order. And then this time we can find people and do some other things.
Okay,
But,
that sounds great.
You can
okay,
bring your
And did he pull a
I know.
permit to put this pipe in?
No.
I don't think so.
Sounds like no.
It was.
No, so he didn't comply with the enforcement order.
Done anything.
He didn't.
The rest is just a story.
Yeah,
Everybody
it
has a
is.
story, yeah.
You can go on and on.
Okay?
Okay.
Great.
All right,
Thank
thank
you
you.
very much.
Thank you, ladies.
Chamberlain Glades Marsh.
Yes, okay. I think you've all received the photos from Carol on the disturbance out there. It turns out there was disturbance in the past. Mosquito control was involved, and they were allowed to reroute some of the marsh areas so that the water could flow away from the area where the birds are being protected out there. So the property owners were told, don't do anything without a permit. So recently, they've dug the channel and they've dumped a lot of salt marsh, hay and soils and everything onto a barrier beach where the birds were nesting during the birding season. So Natural Heritage has jumped on it, and Mass Audubon is involved, and DEP had been notified in the past. So when I contacted the property owner, I brought this to their attention, and I said, you know, we're going to be doing enforcement on this, and we're going to have to start by determining how much area was disturbed. So I contacted the two wetland people who work in Salt Marsh. They're both down the Cape, and one of them is able to do it, Martha Reinhardt. She's a professional wetland scientist who specializes in salt marsh restoration. So she's going to come up. They're going to pay for it. So Chamberlain is going to be making the call to her, and then she's going to be giving an estimate to him, and she's going to be going out there and measuring it. And anybody who wants to go out there, it's a mess. It's going to be hard to figure out how much was disturbed, and but we'll get her estimate of that, and then Natural Heritage wants to hear back from us, and DEP wants to hear back from us. 3 people from DEP have called on this,
Okay.
so.
What's the time frame, Pat?
She could get out there as soon as she sets it up with him, and she submits an estimate for the work. So I'll tell her that it'll be work in the field and at least one meeting here, and then a write-up.
Okay.
So, and I don't know what they do as far as restoration of this. I don't know whether
But
they,
the owner knows that this is going to happen right away?
it's a management company. It's Chamberlain, I think it's called.
So is it is it,
No, he manages it for the, I don't know if it's the Abbotts or the Adamses
Yeah.
okay.
that own the property out at the end.
Okay.
So.
Why did they do this?
They were trying to restore the flow through the marsh because, same thing, they're doing their own mosquito ditching, it seemed like. But it wasn't under a permit, and it wasn't done the right way, and you're not supposed to pile it up on the beach. There were several
Yeah.
things about it, but
That's too bad, because they went through it before.
yeah, and mosquito control has a long-term permit for doing the same work every year, and they're careful about it, and they have rubber track vehicles
That's
and all
what
that
I'm
stuff.
saying.
This was a big piece of equipment right down the beach. The tracks are still there, weeks later, and in the marsh, and so.
So that should be done within the next month, say, within
Yeah.
a month? She should get
Have they
out
assured
there.
us that they're gonna get on it right away? Have they-
The property owner said he understood and okay, give us the person's name, and then Martha said she can get up here as soon as we needed to.
Well, I think, again, we should probably be giving them some deadlines and just say, you know what, if this doesn't happen by X, we'll be doing something else.
Right, I was kind of glad that we didn't leave it up to them to do it. I'd rather have someone like Martha do it, so. But you're right, we can give a deadline.
What do you think? Our next meeting?
Okay, yeah, as far as getting the work done,
The estimate
Yeah.
and all that, yeah.
okay,
Okay?
all right.
So,
At least
If everybody at
it's open-ended.
DEP is concerned, I think we should be as well.
Yeah.
Fit
Um,
that in.
Yeah.
There's two letters that I've received. Carol, I think, sent them out to you. They were from Dr. French at Natural Heritage.
Yep.
And they had really strict conditions on this area, so they kind of surprised this happened, so.
Okay.
Waiting to hear back from us.
Yeah, plus that, they're coming before us with projects out there all the time. I gotta
Yeah.
believe they wanna get this.
Right. Right.
Do we know who did the work? Do we know who did the actual digging?
No. Yeah. We can find out, though.
Well, I think those kind of people should be aware of it too, that they ought to know better.
Right. Run it by us.
You know, someone's gonna take an excavator and run down the beach. They ought to be known.
It's so isolated out there, we never would have known if mosquito control didn't call us. You know, never would have seen this.
Okay. All right. Great. Well, Mr. Petroselli's here. Do you have anybody come with you, or are you by yourself?
No, I tried to get Grady to come, but he had plans. It was kind of short notice. He wanted to be here.
All right. Is that all right? Do this next?
Sure, yep.
Paul Petroselli, 136 Indian Trail.
Hi, Paul.
Hi, how are you? Good. Pat sent me a letter saying that he was out to look at the property and that the slope was steeper than it appeared to be on the plan that we proposed last time we were here when I was with Lucione. Were you out there too, Penny?
Yeah, I was out there with
Okay,
Pat.
good. Yeah. What Lou did is we tried to get down as low as we could, and the boulders down there are holding up the integrity of the slope is, you just can't take any more stuff away from there, or it'll ruin the integrity of the slope. So we did, looked like we got about maybe 60%. We did flatten it or soften it quite a bit. When Grady and I were here, and our plan proposed that we were gonna maintain the existing slope, and Pat Brennan was here, and he basically said, yeah, it looks good, along with the swale, however, he thought that maybe it would erode, possibly. And that's when we all came up with, why don't we come back with a planting plan? And that's when I went out to Sion, and Sion came in with a planting plan, but in addition to the planting plan, he proposed that we flatten that slope. Now, Grady said that we never really, in his plans, his revised plan, that we didn't need to flatten that slope. But it was Sion, as part of his planting plan, said, hey, why don't we flatten it? It would make the neighbor happy, make the commission happy. That's what we've been talking about. So the plan, the way it stands with Grady, it works without flattening the slope. It works fine. In fact, it's working great because we have the swale in, the 2 feet by 2 feet, crushed stone with the piping going all around the whole perimeter of the land and dumping into the rain garden, and it's working great. Worked on July 4th, that storm, right around July 4th, I think it was. And then it happened last week with all the heavy rains, like 8 inches. It's unbelievable. There's no erosion whatsoever. And then today, I was out there taking pictures. There's no erosion at all. It's working awesome. So if we went down to the toe, and I asked Lou, Lou said, we never said that we're going to go right down to the toe and start to flatten it. He went down as far as he could. There's big, massive boulders. There's still some ledge down there that are holding back the boulders that we have there. Those boulders are so big, they start out big on the very toe, and then they get smaller and smaller and smaller. So we scraped off like 60%. I drew up a quick picture. I didn't have much time to prepare for this because, can I show this to you?
Sure.
That's kind of what we've done. Here's the house, here's the patio, here's that swale that we put in all the way around here. Some of you guys haven't done that, I was just
I've been there.
Okay, cool. So this 2x2 foot swale, 2 feet deep, 2 feet wide, crushed stone with piping in there. It collects all this, and goes around down into the rain garden. So this is where the slope was before we took it back, like all the way like this, a big rectangle like this, okay? And it was steep. We cut this back. These lines indicate how we flattened it. From here over here, it's got to be, I don't know how many feet, maybe 20 feet or more. Flatten, flatten, flatten. So now it's like a half circle like this all the way around. Then there's going to be grass in here, and we've got this collecting everything all around the perimeter. It's working great.
Paul, was some of this flattening done real recently, or was this done like?
No, it was done before you were out there.
Okay, because it looked a little steep still out in this area. I mean, I can see
Really?
down here you've taken it down. Here it looked.
Right in here?
It looked high.
This is what we were given to expect when we went out there.
Right.
When Lou was here. And when Pat and I went out there, it doesn't look like that. It's a much steeper slope.
Yeah, but again, Grady proposed, but we didn't have to soften it at all, and it was gonna work. And Pat Brennan agreed that it just needed a planting plan, like just plant on what's existing.
Can I jump in for a minute? So I know that you and Pat went out, and then the landscaper's been working at Mr. Petroselli's site, and he was anxious to keep moving. He called me last week, and I went out on Thursday. I stopped at the office and got a copy of Sion's plan
Yeah.
before I went out there, and we met last Thursday, I think.
Friday, I think it was Friday. It could have been Thursday.
I think Thursday night, late Thursday. And just to backtrack a little bit, so everybody's aware that this site had a very different look. When Mr. Petroselli built it, they put a lot of material in the back. It had a very steep slope.
Right.
The solution, as he states, was Grady came up with this trench and swale at the top of the hill so that water wouldn't flow over the edge. That water
Yeah.
would collect and go to the rain
Or
garden.
wooden road either.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and as he said, Pat Brennan said that would work, but the issue was, how are you gonna plant the slope?
Yeah.
So then they went to the landscaper and said, how are we gonna make this work? The landscaper came back with this plan, which is not the engineer's plan, with the cross-section that we show here. And I brought that plan with me, and I looked at it, and I said, well, this is not what was shown to
What was
us
proposed.
by the landscaper. But to your point, there was another plan that was before that they were saying that it would work if nothing were changed at all. So now we've got something somewhere in the middle.
Right.
I don't disagree with Mr. Petroselli that it would be very difficult to start at the bottom of that hill
Yeah.
and dig that all out. You know, whether we should ever got to that point, I'm not saying that
Right. Plus, there's some existing
ledge.
there
Right.
that is also holding it all back.
Right.
It wasn't
So
just flat
even
like
if that
There
was-
still some.
I don't disagree, even if that was scraped out, who knows what the contour would be, because it would be following the ledge that was there before.
It was strategically placed, these big blocks when we were doing it, to hold all that back.
So now what happens, and we shouldn't really be engineering this thing, but what happens is from that swale or from the ditch that's put
Yeah,
in
at the
there,
top.
it sort of goes out, goes down,
Yeah.
does this, and heads down again. So instead of having this steep, this shallow slope, it really goes up, flattens out a little bit, and goes up again.
Yeah.
In talking
About
with,
6 to 10 feet, somewhere around there.
Right.
I don't know exactly. Like Penny said, it's like a cliff. It's no longer like a cliff anymore.
Yeah.
You know, you can plant there, and it looks really, it's gonna look really nice, and it's gonna be irrigated and everything else.
so Mr. Sion, the landscaper, contends that he can plant that slope out
And it will hold.
and it will hold. I don't know whether we need someone else to say that it will or it won't. We've got,
Wasn't, excuse me for interrupting.
go ahead.
Wasn't it also part of the agreement that we were gonna check in to see how it's holding and maintaining like a year from now? So
Yes, it was.
So, you know, I've got irrigation, all that going in, we've got Sion, who's the best of the best, doing it, you know, he's got a great reputation, and he's down there with me, and he was with you and I that day.
Right.
What is going on with the neighbor's water? Is it still, is he still?
As Mr. Petroselli points out, when I was there, it wasn't raining, but I mean, I looked down and I didn't see any more siltation going towards the neighbor. I mean, I think that this interceptor piece at the top is doing what it's supposed to do.
And we don't even have grass in there yet, or any plants.
Right.
There's not one, you know?
I think possibly Henry just seems to be concerned that it's so high still. And kind of what happened, and I understand Mr. Grady, one view, Mr. Sion. I myself, I know at the meeting when Lou came in with you, my impression was this is what we were going to get, okay? I understand we probably aren't going to get it, but when you go out there and Mr. Yay was given a copy of this, so this is what he's expecting to see. So I think that's part of the problem. This is what we expected to see when obviously we're not gonna see it. So now what do? You know, I'm not saying that the irrigation isn't gonna work, you know, that everything isn't gonna work, but that was kind of my problem, is this is what I expected to see.
It's kind of like we created a problem with this,
And that sure isn't what's there. Now, of course, the plantings aren't there, so I don't know what to say. I mean, I just want it not to go into Mr. Ye's yard, and I'd love to see it planted and take.
I just, at this point, feel that you got to get the plantings in and give it a chance. And I understand the impatience because it's taken a long time. But to your point, in this particular case, and I wasn't happy a while ago, but I think it deserves a chance to be fully planted, give it a chance to work at this point, rather than alter it again or make it even harder to understand how we've gotten here.
I just had a comment. I think I agree with Penny in that when Lou left last time and we had the plan that we approved, it did show that kind of slope. We felt more comfortable. If it can work this way and capture all the stormwater, I think we could live with it, but we were told it would work that way, but we haven't really been told it'll work this way yet. I mean, it would almost be, maybe Pat Brennan doesn't have to go out there, but maybe Pat should look at any new calculations, because we're kind of basing it on what we agreed to the first time, and now it's changed.
I think
Well,
what's,
we've improved it though, Pat's, you know, excuse me for interrupting.
you go,
You know, I remember looking, Pat just wanted a planting plan, he liked the plan, he looked at the swale and how it was gonna capture all that.
Yeah.
The only thing he could say was, we just need a planting plan. And Lou gave a planting plan, and then he enhanced it. And I was like, oh, I'm out here on the 5 minutes beforehand. I said, Lou, what are you doing? What are you doing? And he's like, listen, this will work. That's the best way to get the plants in, you know, and yada, yada. And if I had a chance to meet with him the day before, he was coming back from Colorado, we met out the hallway. And I said, all right, well, we'll go with it. It's gonna cost me a lot of money, but Ye's gonna be happy, the commission's gonna be happy. We'll flatten it all out, and we'll go with it. And
Maybe if Pat Brennan says that's correct, it'll work. It's just that plantings aren't the key thing. The swale is the key thing, and maybe it will work. Maybe Pat
I guess
can back you up.
I'm doubtful that if you just talk to him on the phone and say, well, they didn't do it quite that way, but will it be okay? My guess is he's not gonna say, yeah, that's fine. At a minimum, he's gonna wanna take a look at the thing or,
At least walk it.
or whatever.
Yeah, unless the engineering for the flow of the water he was in agreement with, and the erosion in the plantings were a thing that he was just.
The change,
was
the
an extra.
difference is from this swale to the property line. does not have the same contour.
See,
Yeah,
You know, this is the way it was,
yeah.
right? And so now it's like this. So all this is flat.
Operate off plans.
So
Right.
he was okay with it
Now we've got-
planting
This is
along
good.
this.
Yeah.
It's warm and
So he's gotta
fuzzy,
be
it's
happy
good, yeah.
planting it on a flatter surface.
Yeah, and I think we just need someone to say that for us. You know, I think we'd all be more comfortable with.
Right.
in
Yeah.
a year, we can say that's.
So since this,
Yeah.
the Grady's haven't done any engineering,
They're on standstill.
Yeah.
We're in standby.
so. And Lou thinks
Well,
that,
I mean, I think, Paul, personally, you ought to do one of two things. Either talk to Grady, and if they want to talk to Brennan, or you want to talk to the consulting engineer yourself, and just get them to take a look at it and say, here's what we did
Sure.
versus this. If we're okay, and he's willing to say it's okay, then I think,
I'll have Grady talk to Brennan. How's that sound?
yeah, and just say, we made these changes, here's what it looks like, and if we're good with it, and it can be planted out. Obviously, we're not
Gotta
gonna,
be planted.
We're not gonna know until next year.
and we always have a shot at it a year from now if it turns out it's not working.
I mean, if,
And Grady, excuse me for interrupting, but Sion just doesn't want to get going without, obviously, without the,
right.
the approval from the commission. We can go stop planting.
And I honestly feel, if they can tell us that this is gonna work, and it appears to be from the top, that it would kind of be a mistake at this stage to go in and dig the whole thing up. That, to me, would just create more,
Chaos.
So why don't we just have Brennan look, sign off
Yeah.
on it, and then send a letter to Pat, then it's okay, you know, because he originally signed off on
Alright.
the form, and we're good.
Cool.
And then a year later, we check on it to make sure everything's good.
Everything's gonna hold.
Sounds good to me.
If they think it's gonna work, I just don't want anything going down. That's the big
Yeah.
thing, and it has to be planted, it has to be.
okay.
Because in time, of course, because there is an awful lot of broken up rock in there now.
Yeah.
You know, it's gotta be stabilized.
Okay.
Let's hope it can work.
It's gonna work, yeah, I know it is. I mean, we've gone through a lot of storms,
Yeah,
you know, and, I've been working on this house for 2 years.
yeah, I know.
And
but-
so we've had a lot of storms, and the only reason there's any silt at all over there is because we didn't put up, the fence right away. And then, once we started working on it and get everything in, so I think it's gonna be no
You get
problem.
some
I think the more
bushes around
vegetation there, the better.
it. Definitely, over the long term, because the vegetation,
Yeah.
once it takes hold, it's.
Pat,
it's
have you
gonna-
had any
And the gutters aren't in
correspondence
yet
from
either. Wait till that
I
collects
know.
all that.
Yeah,
I know.
saying
Yeah,
that
and
he
there's no
has
grass.
Water?
He's talked about being worried about, but he hasn't talked about water flowing on his
Okay,
property.
so he hasn't
right.
said
No,
About
he
any water?
talked about the height.
The height
because
and
it's-
the-
The height is still there.
But at this point, he hasn't
if it
mentioned
works,
getting.
It's softened, yeah.
So he hasn't said
Right,
he's
but if
getting
it's a
any water.
runoff problem, the rest is aesthetics.
Right.
You know, if you solve the problem with handling the stormwater, the other thing's an aesthetic problem, it's a whole different animal.
Yes and no, but if you went out there, Paul, there is a lot of rock, and over time, if that is not planted, eventually, the hunks of rock will get eroded and start going down that hill. Right now, it's stabilized. but
Right.
Over
need
time,
to be
because
planted.
it's all been, well, you saw it, Frank.
So let's just get Brennan out there, he signs off on it, and then.
Yeah, then they can plan it and,
And one last thing, if you remember from the last meeting, when Sion was here, he's gonna put that mesh down.
Yes,
You know,
that's right.
that they put on the side of the highways to
Yeah.
keep it from eroding. And then
Yeah.
he told me, he like cuts in like an X,
Yeah.
and then he puts the plant right inside there.
Yeah.
All nice and tight,
Let's hope,
yeah.
give it a whirl.
Okay. Well,
Thank
thank you
you.
very much.
Thanks.
When's your next house going up?
All right. They have a lot of experience, though. Thank you.
Good night.
Take care.
What else have we got?
Toll
Brad?
Brothers,
Pratt, 180 Central Ave, footings for deck, no DEP number? Order conditions, what's that?
That's been
It
on,
has.
that's been
We've been
ongoing.
waiting and waiting.
So what is the status? Have you talked to him? Why,
is that
why
out
is
on
he?
Central Ave?
Why is there no, is that DEP's not getting back to us with a number?
Or he may not
have
have
a
paid the
file.
fees?
You didn't send the check in. I said,
Oh.
I've given up.
Have they done the work?
Oh, yeah, the work's been done for months.
Well, let's just do, we need to send them an enforcement order.
Last, I talked to the
Is that in Humrock? Yes. Okay.
It's the neighbor, knock on the door.
See how many problems we had in Scituate tonight that weren't in Humrock?
That's right,
Yeah.
that's right, they were all somewhere else, right.
What a change.
Quickly, let's do the minutes, and then Pat, you can go back to the Glen and Toll
There
Brothers.
you go.
I make a motion to accept the minutes as written of June 18th, 2014.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I make a motion to accept the minutes of July 2nd, 2014, as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
All right.
Now,
We
Pat.
Richard had a
got about
topic.
5 more minutes and we're gonna, 5, yeah.
Toll Brothers, we had the meeting last night, there's 120 people showed up, and every issue under the sun came up, and the next meeting, anything to do with Toll Brothers is gonna be our hearing on the NRAD, so there's gonna be a packed room. We're probably gonna be at the GAR building, and we're gonna have to really direct it toward wetland kind of issues.
Yep.
Yep.
We've been
Right,
down
and it's
this,
just an ANRAD hearing, right?
That's it.
Right, yeah, so
Yep,
we've done this before already.
yeah, yeah.
you're gonna have to earn your
But I'll
money,
tell
Frank,
you,
and we'll
Yeah.
be there till the sun comes up.
They would, one person would, you'd get an answer, and the next one would ask the same question.
Yeah,
So
well,
you
Right.
really
No, we have to
be
keep it
on the
focused on the
Yep.
Very
ANRAD,
focused
on the ANRAD.
on what our problem is with it, or what.
The Glen, they're about to start, this is Fiore Brothers, they have the turtle sweep going on this week, and then they're gonna be starting to cut in for the road and the cul-de-sac out
They
there.
already
And
started to cut in. Today,
they were laying out, they were laying out some erosion control and stuff today.
Where's this?
Major trees were down, they were piled by the side of the road.
Wait, wait, wait.
On which one?
Are you,
On the
he's
Glen?
talking the Glen.
Oh, you're
Oh,
talking
yeah.
to Glenn.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm in the wrong
Yeah,
spot.
yeah, you were close though, you were around the corner.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, they've taken they've taken trees out of there.
Okay, yeah.
And, let's see, what was the other one up there? The Glen, Toll Brothers, that's it, I think Richard had one.
I did?
No, Bill.
Bill.
I would just like to introduce at some point a discussion about putting some more teeth into our ongoing efforts for enforcement orders. We issue a violation order, then we issue an enforcement order, then we can issue a fine. It is a minimal fine and doesn't seem to have much consequence. So I'd like to introduce it for discussion at some point. I don't know if it has to go through the Board of Selectmen or, how do we go about?
Yeah, fees have to go through the Board of Selectmen. I think fines can be some of them would be under the Wetland Protection Act. And then under the bylaw, I could find out. I'll have to ask about that.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
According to the Wetlands Enforcement Manual, fines cannot be imposed in an enforcement order, even though the Wetlands Protection Act and many local bylaws and ordinance contain penalty provisions. Conservation commissions may not use an enforcement order to impose fines. The Conservation Commission can impose fines under the Wetlands Protection Act only by going to court and getting a final judgment from a judge. The Conservation Commission can assess fines for violations of a bylaw or ordinance through the GLC 4021D process.
So we have to be specific with fines to what bylaw.
Yeah, right now we do it through the town bylaw and it's $50 or something, and it's
Right.
not, right, but
How
no,
about if
that's
they
good.
just have to
That's-
talk with Penny for a while?
Yeah.
I would
Get to spend
pay
an
the
afternoon
$50.
with Penny.
My idea would be some kind of escalating, nothing.
I understand what you're saying. It gets frustrating when we stand here and tell people.
Right, because we waste multiple meetings with people going, oh, I don't know, and I'll look into it, and not, like, nothing.
Well, and
It's
months go by.
Right.
And we're.
Because the ball is, the ball, it's on our back, not on
So
theirs.
I will work with Pat, we'll dig it out and I'll bring, I think
Okay.
everybody's open to at least discussing.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
No, it'd be nice to have someone actually coming in here and thinking, my God, if I don't get this thing sorted out, it's gonna cost me some money.
Month one, it's gonna cost me this, but month two, it's gonna
Right.
cost me this, or whatever,
Yeah,
yeah.
because that's the only way they.
But the reality is, and I hate to say it, but
Yeah.
there's limited resources and funds to actually pursue this
Yep.
thing to a court
Yep.
piece. And then you can get there and you can get a judge that's gonna look at it and say, do I really care if they threw a bunch of brush in this wetlands, or is it, you know, the reality is it's difficult.
It's hard.
The biggest thing that's gonna happen is when people have to sell their property or whatever, if they can't clear something that we've imposed, then they've got a problem.
Sending.
They gotta spend some money.
Right.
Or they find
Yeah,
somebody
or they
that
find-
overlooks.
Then they come in here and say, I need this signed by yesterday, because we're having the closing, and my mother's sick, and,
What's
Oh,
going
yeah.
on with Walden Pond? Is that-
Walden Woods.
Walden Woods.
Yes, Walden,
Yeah,
it's
it's
not
very
Walden
pretty.
Pond, I'll
Very
tell you.
pretty.
Yeah, right, exactly.
much.
I'm rubbing off like.
Yeah, it's a Walden Raging River. It's, it was wet, yeah, it was pretty wet. But, you know, it wasn't pouring when I got there, so by the time I got there, it was a little trickle, it wasn't making it to the street, and the stormwater basin had been plugged, and it wasn't overtopping, so could
He
have
said it
been.
was going across the street to the Bond Brook, to the brook.
Yeah, maybe it was last night during the heavy rain.
Town Brooks and North
I
Situate,
know.
Situate Brooks.
Situate
Yeah.
Brook, it was going over, he said in his email this
Yeah.
morning. that it
Yeah,
was
I got out there
going-
about 1,
The
and
Glen.
it wasn't.
Yeah, well,
Farm,
this was
it's all
10
the same.
o'clock.
Yeah.
I'm so confused.
Are we, did we decide to do the signs? We're good with the signs?
Which ones?
That, the ones that you put out there, that,
Oh,
yeah, we're gonna do that?
for the permits?
Yeah, for the permit signs?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're
I
gonna
just
do that?
done paper, mine. I don't
Yeah,
know.
we're gonna do
I
that?
tried to
I
find
think
one,
that's
printed
a
it
great
out.
idea.
Okay.
What color?
I think they were yellow, weren't
They
they?
were yellow.
Yellow,
Something bright,
yellow.
Yeah.
Richard's shirt, something like that.
something bright.
Can't have the shirt to use, though.
No. You want.
All right.
No, I think the brightest.
And then we've put off a bunch of the enforcement ones where, that weren't as big as these 3 tonight, and I don't know if we want to do them next meeting, because we're going to have that big Toll Brothers
Right.
handrail, if we want to do it after, but it's like 271 Central and 244 Central. We'll get back to those Hummerock sites that, so there were a few of those that never responded to our letter, and, I mean, now it can be an enforcement order, I guess.
Okay.
To be, for the meeting that we're expecting the Toll Brothers to get in their forms to us and get in the wetlands delineation on August 6th. Now, even if they get that in, our wetlands person won't have gone out there yet, will he?
They're gonna start by reading the old ORAD stuff, so,
Okay, well, I'm kind of looking at that first meeting is not really going to get into a lot of questions and answers until our specialist goes out and is comparing
okay,
apples
let
to
them
apples.
present, and then we'll go out afterwards. We could do
Well,
that.
no, I'm just wondering how you're gonna work it. I'm trying to gauge how big a meeting this will be. Will it just be kind of them coming in, presenting what they think is the wetland delineation, and we say, okay, now our expert's going out?
We could do it that way, or we could have Chris do one walkthrough based on the old ORAD and some, you know, some things that we've walked recently on. Either way, could be either way. I agree, though, that we're gonna want Chris to go out again after their
Well,
presentation.
Because if it's just a presentation, if we have a large group of the public, there's really nothing without our report done.
Right, right, there's nothing to
compare,
discuss,
so
there's
it
nothing,
shouldn't
yeah.
be
Yeah.
A lot of discussion.
Well, I think that's the part,
Yeah,
and
that's
as
what I-
Paul was just saying, and it's hard to get people to understand. And ORAD and ANRAD, they're very important, because
Yeah.
ultimately
No, I know.
delineating that resource will drive how different things are done, so it has to be correct. But we're not discussing a change at that point. We're talking about making sure that all of the existing conditions on the site are
Yeah.
properly documented.
Yes, that's what we're doing, but what I'm trying
And then
to,
our people have to concur with theirs. So they're gonna come forward and say, here's where we
Yeah.
think the isolated wetlands are, here's where the BBW is, here's where the marsh is, here's where all these pieces are. We're gonna look at that, and we're gonna say, fine, you know, but what we want is our person to go out with your person and review all these. And, you know, if they have to move a line, or, you know, as he's saying, there'll be soils pieces to evaluate, so they're gonna dig some more holes, and those things happen, then they come back and they say, okay, here's where we agree, here's where we disagree. If everybody's finally good with those pieces, then we can move forward. If they're not, then there's that piece that has to enter into it. If he's got a flag that's,
No, I agree with the whole process. What I'm trying to get at is the public. There really won't be questions to be asked at
well,
the August
they'll
6th.
ask questions, and we're gonna do our best to explain what it is that we're doing, and then what will happen
Okay.
after that. I gotta believe that a lot of the people that are gonna be at that meeting have already heard this, because that whole process went forward 5 years ago with Pulte.
Yeah, exactly.
So
We
it's,
gotta talk to the cable too.
Right, but like Frank's saying, this is the way we always do it. They come in, they do the ANRAD, then the consultant looks.
what we did discuss when we were walking the site with some of the Toll Brothers representatives was that we would get a person on board sooner than later. I mean, technically, with some of these hearings, we could actually open that first hearing, they could give us all this stuff, and then we'd say to them, okay, we're gonna hire a consultant.
Right.
We'll get back to you.
Right.
We've sort of moved ahead, and we already have brought someone on board. That if we want Chris to be at the hearing so that he hears the concerns of the folks that are there, that's fine. You know, it might help him in looking at some of those areas, but truly, at some point, he's gotta go out to the site. If they want to have him go ahead of time and look at some of those, but I don't really know that that's gonna serve.
Well, in order for us to give us a cost estimate, he's gonna have to go out there anyway, isn't he?
Yeah, maybe we can do that. We can take a walk with him out there, have him read their ANRAD, and then be prepared to go to the meeting, and then do his real visit after that to actually match flags with, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Do
Steve?
that.
Yeah, I was just gonna comment, I would think because the site has already been delineated and approved, even though it was in the past, as far as the public is concerned, I would try to prepare Toll Brothers to show what was delineated, and if there are changes that put more wetlands in, these are where the changes occurred, and be concerned if there was a wetland, which is now not a wetland,
Yeah.
because if I was just a member of the public, that's what I'd be concerned
Right.
with. Because they have already seen the whole ANRAD process.
Right.
So I would think if they can somehow superimpose the old. and
Yeah,
the
that's a
new,
good idea. This is
then
what's
you
already
can
been
see the
established,
changes that have
right.
happened over the last
Yeah.
5 years or 6 years.
It's all upland now.
And-
Yeah.
I mean, but
Yeah.
basically, they'll probably find more areas that may have encroached into the upland with the wetland. But I think if the people in the public gauge on that, rather than, why is this or why is that
I
not
think
a
some
wetland?
people are just expecting to start to hear this whole proposal about what they're gonna do, and that's not what's gonna happen.
Right, and that- which happens at ANRAD's a lot.
Right.
People say, I don't think there should be
Right.
houses there, and Frank's like,
Right.
this is just a
We
delineation.
don't wanna get involved in that until they come
Yeah,
back.
but they did spend their time going through this for meeting after meeting,
Yeah.
and I don't think the delineation was the largest part of the whole thing.
Right.
I mean, as far as the public was concerned, I think the delineation is gonna probably go okay for you guys. You know, it's just the changes between the old and the new.
Right.
They're gonna wanna know why it changed or what changed.
But they may have, then what will happen is they could have a different approach to this, where it was a 40B before, and they didn't have to deal with different buffer zones.
Buffers, yeah.
Toll Brothers
Right.
is gonna
But
have to.
that's after,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's something
Yeah, I
that we
think-
can make,
yeah.
explained a little bit, that
We know,
understand that this is a different process.
Yeah.
Right. And it's
Right.
probably gonna be stricter from your buffer zones because it's a single-family development.
That's right.
Rather than the 40B.
Right.
And they're still gonna have to work within those constraints.
Right. Isolated wetlands are gonna be a part of it that
Right.
don't occur in the other ones, so.
But I think the old against the new is gonna be the best approach for them to try and take.
Yeah.
Right.
This is what we
Pat
had,
did
this is what we
mention that
got.
in the beginning.
Yeah,
Right.
and I told
Before
Chris
you
we'd be
came
giving
in.
him the old one to look at, and then,
Yeah,
you're right,
and-
and,
Yeah,
Put
just
them on top of each
highlight the
other.
new changes.
Yeah.
yeah. That'd be a lot to cover the first night. We could do that the first night, and then we can have Chris go out afterwards for his real
Yeah, I
review.
think
Okay,
we just have to run the course.
yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
all right.
Anybody else?
Rosemary, any news from the peninsula?
You know, I had comments on why didn't the agent ask you if you had any?
Because you're a regular, you're a regular.
You just gotta speak up, Rosemary, don't wait.
Chad, how was your vacation?
It's long distant memory at this point.
Like a month ago.
Very
One
this week,
vacation.
yeah.
Carol's off next week?
Yeah.
Good for you.
And
There won't be a vacation next week.
the first week of August. so-
Oh, you will suffer
Won't
that
be
week
here for
without
that.
Carol.
Just lock the door.
There'll be
Turn
plenty
off the
of
light, lock the door. Oh,
Do I have
there's,
a motion?
I make a motion that we close.
I second the motion.
Rosemary, there's
Adjourn.
Favor.
something
Aye.
on Fourth
Aye,
Cliff.
meeting, yes.
The Air Force called us this week and they wanna
Um,
knock down